Welcome to another episode of our video series of the mechanics of human cognition. It's great to have you with us. Today, we're going to tackle something that sits at the absolute core of our experience, something we do every second of every day, but almost never actually think about. We're going to break down the very mechanics of what it means to believe.
So let me just start with this question right out of the gate. Do you think a life without any belief is possible? I mean, could you really get through your day operating on pure hard fact alone with zero assumptions?
Well, from a purely cognitive standpoint, the answer is a hard no. It's just not possible. And look, this isn't some philosophical debate we're having. It's a statement about the basic wiring of your brain. Belief isn't some optional software you can choose to install or not. It's part of the factory settings.
To really get why, you have to understand the brain's number one job. Its main goal isn't to figure out the ultimate capital T truth of the universe. Its main job is to keep you alive and help you navigate the world without using a ridiculous amount of energy. And to do that, it makes assumptions, constantly. It creates these little provisional truths to make sense of everything coming at you.
Think about this. It's a perfect example. The last time you sat in a chair, you saw it, and you instantly formed a belief. This chair will hold my weight, right? You didn't pull out a calculator and do a structural analysis, you just sat. You acted on an assumption. That is a functional belief in action, a mental shortcut that saves you a ton of time and energy. Our lives are literally built on millions of these tiny, unconscious acts of trust every single day.
Okay, so if our brains are just these giant assumption-making machines, then what does that mean for something we call knowledge? How do we get from a simple belief like, this chair is safe, to the big, complex ideas we consider to be solid facts?
First, let's just lock in a clear definition so we're all on the same page. For our purposes, a belief is a foundational acceptance that something is true. Think of it as the raw material, the mental shortcut your brain uses to build a working model of reality. And this brings us to a really important distinction. We tend to think of belief and knowledge as being on opposite teams, but they're not. Knowledge isn't the absence of belief. It's actually a special kind of belief. You could say knowledge is a justified belief. It's an assumption that we've taken the time to back up with some kind of reason, evidence, or experience. And this isn't just about everyday stuff. This pattern is the engine of science itself. A scientific hypothesis, at its core, starts as a belief, an educated guess, a hunch. The entire scientific method is a system designed to rigorously test that initial belief. So, science doesn't start from a place of no belief. It starts with one, and then does everything it can to try and break it. All right, now we're zooming out to the big picture. All these little individual beliefs you have about chairs, about people, about the world, they don't just float around in isolation. They all connect and link together to form this huge invisible structure, a kind of mental matrix that literally shapes and defines your reality. And that's not just a cool-sounding metaphor. It's a direct causal chain. Your core beliefs act like filters on your perception. Those filters determine how you interpret an event. That interpretation dictates your emotional response, and that emotion is what triggers your behavior. You see the chain? It's the exact mechanism that therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy are designed to work on. If you want to change a behavior, you have to go back and find the root belief. So in a very real sense, we are all living inside a matrix that we've built for ourselves. It's the cognitive operating system that's running in the background of your life, deciding how you process everything: success, failure, love, loss. The real question isn't if you have one. The question is, what is yours programmed to do? Now, if we all have this mental matrix, it brings up a really fascinating question, right? What about people who aren't religious in the traditional sense? Are they somehow free from this kind of big, overarching belief structure? Seriously, think about that for a second. If you identify as secular or an atheist, does that mean you've escaped having a belief system? Or have you just adopted a different one? Well, from a functional perspective, any coherent ideology, pretty much anything that ends with an ism, serves the exact same cognitive purpose as a religion. It gives you a framework of values, a moral code to live by, a shared goal for the group, and a story that explains how the world works and where you fit into it. I mean, just look at the parallels here. Religions have their scriptures, ideologies have their manifestos or constitutions. Religions have commandments, ideologies have laws and social norms. Religions might aim for salvation in the afterlife. Modern ideologies often aim for things like progress, growth, or equality here on Earth.
They are functionally the same thing. They're just different containers for our deep-seated human need for a coherent story.
So this all leads us to the most important question of this entire discussion. If we have to accept that a life without belief is impossible, then the whole conversation needs to shift. The goal can't be to stop believing. The goal has to be to ask a much better question. How well are my beliefs actually serving me? This right here is the ultimate test for any belief you hold. It's not about whether you can prove it's 100% verifiably true, because let's be honest, that's often impossible. The real, crucial question is whether it's functional. Does holding this belief make your life and the lives of those around you quantifiably better? Does it lead to good outcomes?
Let's break it down like this. Functional beliefs are the ones that empower you. They help you grow, they create connection, they lead to genuine well-being. Dysfunctional beliefs, they do the exact opposite. They create division and hostility, they box you in, and ultimately, they just cause suffering for you and others. And what's really amazing is that when you look for the core principles of what makes a life functional, you find this incredible agreement. Modern biology and neuroscience point to these things. And guess what? So do nearly all of the ancient wisdom traditions. They just use different words. They all talk about moving your body, not over-consuming, having a real community, managing your internal state, and having a sense of purpose.
So let's tie this all together. You can't escape having a belief system. It's baked into your cognitive hardware. You are operating inside a matrix. But realizing that isn't some kind of trap. It's a call to action. It means your most important job is to become the architect of your own mind, to consciously examine, question, and build a more functional operating system for yourself. So I'll just leave you with this one thought. Take a hard look at the beliefs that are guiding your actions, your emotions, and your biggest life choices. And just ask yourself one simple question. How functional is my operating system?